Hello, welcome to our session, AI-powered IT Finance, a conversation with experts on transforming IT financial management practices. Welcome, everybody. My name is Eveline Oehrlich. I am going to be your facilitator, and I am glad you are here and interested in this particular topic. Let me quickly introduce the two speakers, the two experts, and here we are in session 3. The three of us have become professional friends, I would say, right? We have with us Nancy Braun, or Nan Braun, who has been in IT finance for many, many years, has lots and lots of experience across multiple things, topics, key areas, and is a wonderful expert, you will find out. And then my colleague, Dr. Alexander Becker, who is actually the COO of ServiceWare, but also inside ServiceWare, he is our, I call him the resident expert and strategist, working with clients and of course with our product teams and others inside ServiceWare. And then myself, facilitator, I actually am not a stranger to this topic as well, but I'm really only the facilitator. I used to work at industry as an industry analyst in this topic, doing research. But let's get on to the topic. So in our third session, we're going to talk about from planning to preparing. And all of this is actually based on a fantastic white paper, which I will share with you at the end of the session, how to get your hands on this white paper. But today, really, we're talking about from planning to preparing. And what we want to understand, because we are assuming not everybody is as adverse as these two experts on these topics, we're going to go into the definitions of the large language modules and large quantitative models. And both of those folks will have their turn on discussing what that is. And then also we'll explore some examples on that. So with that, Alex, I'm going to hand you over the first question. Would you explain to us what's the definition of an LLM, of a large language model?
Sure, thanks, Eveline. So large language models, in the end, think of it, it's advanced AI system that are trained to understand and generate human-like text, right? So you can think of them like virtual analysts that help you interpret, read, and create narratives, also financial narratives in the use case of IT financial management. And they revolutionize the process, how you can interpret, analyze, and structure qualitative language-oriented data. Yeah? So task a large language model can do is entity recognition, so recognizing terms and matching them, sentiment analysis, so understanding what is the emotion behind a certain communication, and also very standard text operations like summarizations or rewriting to fit and appeal more to a certain role.
Excellent. That sounds like the easy part. Nancy, you have the next part. What stands behind the LQM?
Great. So an LQM, or a large quantitative model, as its name says, is doing interpretation and analysis based off of numeric data. So whereas an LLM uses narrative or language inputs, an LQM uses numerical inputs. Those numerical inputs could be formulas. They could be bodies of data where it can analyze and find trends. For a while, people were using statistical inference models for a lot of numerical analysis. The advantage to an LQM is that it can use data that is cross-domain. So you don't have to stick to just your financial actuals and your plan data, but maybe you're also looking at weather data or sentiment data or operational performance data. And it can bring all of those together to look for trends and patterns in that to do analysis. And so it builds up this idea of a trend in analysis. It becomes familiar with a domain. That's kind of the first stage of training. And then you fine tune it. So you could build a model that is specific for IT financial forecasting. And then you would tune it to your particular organization by feeding it multiple years of actuals and forecast data until it got to know your organization well within its structure of understanding IT financial forecasting, for example. So it's kind of a two-step training process where you build knowledge of a domain and then you fine-tune it for a particular organization.
So all of yours, what you have said made me extremely curious of the use case. But before we go to you, let's go back to Alex.
Sure.
What are some use cases in relation to IT finance in terms of large language modules? What can you share there?
Yeah, I would look at it from the objective you want to achieve with applying AI, right? So you don't use AI for the sake of AI, but you want to realize the outcome. So one major objective LLMs can help with is increase the reporting efficiency. So make it more easy to get the right data and the right structure, so they can automatically generate reports based on data in a certain structure that you instruct the model to do. That's also commonly referred to as chat with your data. So imagine like you work today with a typical LLM like ChatGPT, for example, where you ask the model questions and you get answers. In the same way you can ask, can you please provide me reports sorting my business services by the highest charge to the business, or by a certain criteria, filter it in a certain way. So instead of dragging and dropping together a report, you can easily query a report. The second objective is obviously to enhance decision support. So LLM can help you translate data into action language and thereby also fulfill the objective of better stakeholder engagement, meaning to create a certain personalized communication. Maybe if you are used to sending your shareholders, stakeholders in the business, certain reports like a monthly plan actual comparison, you can use AI to not just send data, but to have AI write an interpretation around it, maybe highlight the most important aspects. And this can, last but not least, also help them to strengthen the cost transparency overall by leveraging LLM's capabilities to help in a more natural language, maybe for a not very finance savvy person, explain the data in a more human way, so to say.
Great. Nancy, you have, I'm sure, some great examples on the leverage and usage on LQMs. Would you share them with us?
Absolutely, I'd be glad to. And I'll cherry pick a couple. And the white paper has a whole section on just how both LLMs and LQMs are used today, and then also how we foresee they could continue to be used to further the field of IT financial management. But LQMs are particularly good at forecasting. They had the early stages in forecasting in the stock market and being able to predict trends in stock markets and having people leverage that. But that has gone over into financial. So Siemens has adapted some LQMs in their forecasting practices for their financial analysis. There are a lot of organizations who are starting to use this in their software development or project management areas, because those ability to see trends and very early catch variances from those trends are good for risk management. And they also can be used for the waterline process. So we've all been through the tediousness of manually doing water lines, or maybe many of us have, and looking at, here's my budget, and here are all the projects that the business wants us to do. What's above water, what's below water, and what are the impacts and downstream ROI for each of those scenarios. And an LQM that's trained to do water lines can do those very quickly and give you multiple iterations so that you can choose and see many different scenarios and do the comparisons for that. So anything that does forecasting, also data quality. So you can say, hey, here are my inputs for my cost model, and this is the pattern that I expect that data to follow. I'm going to run the data through the LQM before I input it into my cost model, and it can flag where it sees variances, so you don't spend the time running your model and see strange deviations and have to backtrack and figure out what's gone wrong or where you have an unexpected data input issue.
So it's not a one or the other. I'm assuming it is, from what you're saying, it is a combination of the two. So do a little bit of thinking out loud how one and the other would be used in combination. That would be great, I think.
I'm going to start, Alex, or do you want me to start?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
So one of the things that Alex and I have been really wrapping our heads around and talking about quite a bit is how the two types of models could pass data back and forth to each other. So you could have an LLM that's helping you with looking at data inputs for a forecast or for a cost model, and maybe following some patterns in natural language to clean up some data or make some changes or add some tags, do things that make the data more usable in your cost model. Your LQM could be used in your cost model to do multiple iterations, to do forecasting with your cost model, to look at different scenarios, and then take the results of that and feed it back into an LLM again to help do that chat with your data or automated generation of reports that are in human-friendly language, and you don't need to be a tech geek to understand what's going on or a CPA.
Alex, I'm sure you have thoughts. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what is important to understand is that whilst we now talked about the strengths and benefits and capabilities of this model, they both come also with limitations and challenges, right? So,
yes.
And that's where the combination could actually help to put a focus on the strengths and basically equal out the weaknesses. So LLMs, obviously, I told you, are about text. Yeah, so they're not so good with numbers. They can perform easy tasks like sort from big to small. Yeah, they are not able to identify correlations or patterns. That's where the strength of LQM is. But you can think about, and we now talk these days also about agentic AI, like using the LLM as an orchestrator for certain LQMs and knowing, oh, this LQM is very good in creating a forecast. The user has asked about a forecast. I'm not good in doing a forecast, but I can ask the LQM to provide me with forecast data. And then maybe I add some context to it. So out of the combination, I see in future, there will be a strong value because each of these models alone do not cater for the capability we need in IT finance, because IT finance is a discipline to build a bridge between quantitative and qualitative world, between finance, IT and the business. So there's a lot of translation, and the models can interact and be combined to help build that bridge.
And I think it's important to note too with LQMs, although they're very powerful and can do really game-changing analysis, there aren't commercially available LQMs for financial forecasting or for any other topic right now. There are commercially available LLMs that you can tap into pretty quickly and easily, and the on-ramp for those are fast and easy for somebody. LQM has to be kind of custom built. There are frameworks that you can start with, but it has to be custom built and then custom tuned to your organization and kind of purpose fit. And so there's a little bit more learning curve and investment into getting the LQM up and running in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's fair to say, then, that also LQMs today, the majority we know, are not very easy to operate. Yeah? So you need to be rather expert. We at ServiceWare have an AI lab where our colleagues package these models into software modules to be used by an end user in the end. And then you need to parameterize it. You need to understand how they work. And I hope that in future LLMs will help us with these operations, whilst the LQMs over the development will also become, I guess, more user-friendly, I hope.
So that makes...
Oh, go ahead, Eveline.
No, you go ahead, Nancy. You go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really hope that they become more user-friendly too, because the other area that we haven't talked about is simulation. So we talk a lot about running real data, but sometimes we want to do what-if modeling and build simulations. And organizations will get stuck in that because constructing the data sets for that potential future scenario can be overwhelming and complex. And an LQM can generate those simulation data sets very quickly and easily. And so I think we get to a point where those are much easier to operate than that whole field of what if analysis and doing simulations and scenario planning can very quickly evolve.
So one question I have, so the LQMs actually I have to build in my finance team with the knowledge of what I have in terms of a construct and what kinds of things I want to know or want to do, right? It's not like I can buy it off the shelf or go somewhere. At some point in the future, most likely, there will be, as you said, commercially available LQMs for finance or for IT finance, which can be purchased. But as in the group itself, for those who are listening in, those folks would have to learn how to do that and actually apply it to their scenarios or to their data and to their environment. Is that correct?
It is, but there are a couple of organizations, and we go into that in the white paper, who are starting to build those platforms where you can go in and construct those, so you're not writing code from scratch.
Okay.
So there, it is a growing area, and I have hopes that there will be commercial models in the reasonably near future that you just have to tune. But there are frameworks and platforms where you can go in and start to construct and test LQMs as well. And so the white paper does a great job of pointing people to the companies who do those kinds of things.
Excellent. Fantastic. All right. So what did we hear? We heard LLMs are really, I heard about efficiency, translation, and interpretation. To some extent, right? It's that kind of mundane, removing the mundane work and making people more effective in other ways. And the LQMs are really there for quality, speed, and to some extent prediction, I think, right? It's kind of that differentiation. And so both together will allow us to create a value stream, which maybe sometimes in the very, very future, maybe autonomous, right? It's that autonomous work to some extent. I know that's a hard word to swallow because everybody's wondering about that, but it's really that bigger picture of that value stream, which we can actually start automating. So we can actually apply what we know and what we see in the future to our cases and to running our business or changing our business in IT accordingly. And then I think last, and that's, I want to end here. The forecasting topic is something, Nancy, I think you have a lot of passion around, and you mentioned it. In our next session, session 4, we'll actually dive into that in much more detail. So please listen in when you are interested here. With that, I want to make sure that everybody can see this QR code. This is actually the download QR code, or the QR code for the download of the white paper, which both Alex and Nan have mentioned. And then last but not least, important, if you want to have, not if, but when you want conversations with both Nancy and Alex, here are their LinkedIn connections. You can also just search them on LinkedIn. And then on the right-hand side, there is a free assessment. This is independent of this, but a free assessment from Thavron Solutions on your IT finance maturity. That's a great offer, Nancy. Thank you for putting that there. And if you feel like you want to book with Nancy something, even her telephone number, but please make sure you have those details. And again, I want to thank both you, Nancy, and Alex for joining me today, and look forward to our next session where we talk more in detail on the IT forecasting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. It was good seeing you again, Alex. Eveline, thank you very much.
Take care.
Thanks so much.